Next up is a filmmaker whose movies include Henry Gamble's Birthday Party and the new Princess Sid. Here is Stephen Cohn.
One thing that struck me about all of your movies, including a video that you just directed, a music video, is that there is in this country this idea of a religious right versus the secular world, the secular United States. And what I get from your work is that there's a bunch of people who kind of sit in the middle and don't necessarily want to be part of that war, don't want to choose sides, and don't think they have to choose sides necessarily.
Yeah, well, we simplify. I mean, we assume that everyone is a part of one category or another, and what is like what you're saying, everyone is sort of, I think, falls in between those two categories. I mean, I grew up, so my dad's a Southern Baptist minister, and I grew up with, you know, it's a very diverse community. I mean, we lump, for instance, if you watch a debate, you assume that everyone in the crowd, because they're all cheering at a certain moment or whatever, have the exact same points of view about every single thing. But in truth, you know, every group is diverse. Every group is made up of complicated, nuanced, colorful, opinionated people. I mean, we may largely disagree with them, but yeah, just because someone is a member of a particular dogma or religious sect doesn't mean that they're suddenly less complicated than other types of humans. So yeah, but you know, I'm not strategically planning to tell the story in this way. It's like, I grew up in this environment, I had a decent time.
Well, that's
so
it.
It's just
it wasn't like you felt, I mean, you grew up gay in the South in a church. Me being ignorant would say, wow, that must have been horrible. I'm glad you're now here. And that's not the truth.
No, I mean, if anything, I often say my struggles were more to do with like hell and eternity and the rapture than sexuality. I actually was pretty comfortable with coming into my own queerness. In fact, I was leading a Tuesday morning Bible study in my high school when I was starting to come out to friends. And I was pretty chill about it. I mean, it was, I started telling people, I got really excited. I remember I used to deliver flowers for a florist, and I would ride around. I've never told this story. I don't even think privately, let alone publicly.
The interview show.
But I used to, and I should say that I these days tend to identify as queer because my sexuality has been a very interesting journey. But in high school, I was like, oh, I think I might be gay. So I'd ride around, I would deliver flowers, and I would be in the van by myself, and I'd be like, I'm gay. Am I gay? I'm gay. And I would practice saying it. And I think this is a testament to my really kind of lovely parents, that it didn't cause me grief. And they were conservative, Southern Baptist, evangelical Christians.
Henry Gamble's Birthday Party. First of all, you've described it, and I love this, as just a bunch of Christians getting to the pool together.
Yes.
Is how you kind of describe it.
And well, I say a bunch of Christians taking off their clothes.
Taking off their clothes and getting to the pool together, and that's exactly what it is. And what could be an incredibly fraught time for, I will say the main character, although it's very much an ensemble, Henry, and it is, but he also has a great time at his party at the same time. It's not like he's living in complete misery at all.
Right, yeah, I mean, I wanted, adolescence for anyone, I guess, I hope, is pleasurable, largely pleasurable, and I don't know that there's another point in life in which we're feeling things so intensely and so sensually. So, yeah, I didn't want to make a dour doomsday, I mean, there's a lot of dark secrets going on, obviously, but like, you know, these are really exciting times. I mean, listening to pop music when you're 12, 13, 14, discovering pop music, and discovering bodies and attraction and all the possibilities, it's super cool.
It's funny, the movie, it doesn't really have nudity. It has one sex scene, but sensuality and sexuality is throughout the entire film.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, all of this work comes from my fascination, but still to this day, when I go home, I go to church, and I'm always thinking, all of these people have bodies, and they're naked underneath, and it's you know, and so it's this idea of like, devout Christians who spend a large part of their time thinking about the next life and about their souls, and in fact, prioritizing their souls really for you know, a lot of times to their detriment. At the end of the day, have to deal with their bodies just like anyone else, or don't deal with their bodies like anyone else, and that's what comes back to haunt.
No matter what community you're in, there's something about the pool party that is fraught with tension.
Yeah, well, it's got a very innocent vibe.
Pool
And
parties.
Yeah, but no one's, you know, but also we live in a society that's pretty repressed, in large part, in different, especially in segments like this.
What do they say back home about your films?
Well, there's a very fun ritual that I do with my family where the movie's in rough cut form, and you know, it's kind of about them in some ways. And I'm usually visiting home. It usually falls around Thanksgiving, but we'll go out and have dinner. And I think we all subconsciously know we're going to watch the movie that night. So everyone drinks a little more than normal. And then we usually have like a late night rough cut screening where I pace in the living room and they watch it in the den, and then they usually are like, it's really beautiful. I mean, they do, but they don't have anything very specific to say. And you know, Wise Goose specifically was, since it was set in South Carolina, where I'm from, that was kind of a harder watch for them.
And that was kind of your first big...
That was the first movie I made that people actually saw, yeah.
Yeah, okay. What about you? When did you start getting interested in film?
I've loved movies my whole life. I was a cinephile. I grew up obsessed with movies. I could have told you composers, editors, screenwriters when I was like 7 years old.
Really?
Yep. And that's a weird fact. That's not that impressive. And then, but I was
Who was
also
the composer of Out of Africa?
John Barry.
Okay, there we go. What about RoboCop?
Basil Polidorus.
That is awesome.
This was my trick in high school. But don't ask me anymore.
No, that's good. I'm gonna quit while we're both ahead.
I'm so scared of being wrong.
Yeah. What if you were wrong?
I'm not.
Okay. Good.
No, but I was, you know, this was South Carolina in the 90s, and so, especially then in that region, filmmaking is not accessible. It doesn't feel possible. So what happens to a lot of people, especially back then, is you just start doing plays and you maybe are drawn to performance because theater is more accessible than filmmaking, and then was an actor in college. I wasn't even I've never had a film. I teach film at Northwestern, but I've never taken a film class. I was a theater major.
So when did you start making movies?
2005, I was at a stupid ass day job, and I called my dad and said, I'm gonna do it this summer. And so I put too much on a credit card and made my first short. I've more or less made one, on average, a movie per year since. And a lot of them have sucked and not done well, but then eventually, you know, it's like anything. If you keep doing it, eventually people catch on. But I've had a very weird, zigzaggy journey to, the Henry Gamble's sort of cracked the film culture in a way that I haven't been able to do in 12 years. So people are treating me like a first-time filmmaker, but I mean, I've made like 8 of them.
So much.
Yeah.
I hear that so much from people.
Well, it's frustrating. I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, you know, oftentimes the sort of the textbook case of a filmmaker comes along, makes a very impressive small-budget movie, and then next, for their sophomore effort, they have a name actor in their film, and it does even better, and then suddenly they're on the scene.
And then they make an X-Men movie.
And then they make an X-Men movie. But for me, it's been incredibly weird and zigzaggy and sort of the career equivalent of like flying to Detroit to get to Houston or something. So, so I would make one movie that wouldn't get accepted to any festivals, that would not do well at all. And then I would make another one that did really well. And then I would think, oh, now I've started. But then I made another one that didn't do well. So, but now with Henry, I feel like, you know, it's been nice to crack the culture a little bit.
a new one soon, Princess Sid.
Princess Sid,
So
yeah.
what's that?
It's female driven. It's like sort of a love letter to Chicago. It's a young soccer player, a female soccer player, 16 years old, visits her sort of famous novelist aunt in Chicago for the summer. So I like to say it's my version of like How to Make an American Quilt or Stealing Beauty or something like that. So it's a female-led sort of girl summer thing.
That sounds great. Composer for Chariots of Fire.
Vangelis.
Stephen Cohn, everyone.
Thanks.
Funding for the interview show is provided by Lagunitas. Beer speaks, people mumble, except on the interview show. The Lagunitas Tap Room in Chicago is at 2607 West 17th Street.